This is going to be my Monday Night Football plays for week number 5. Kansas City versus New Orleans. New Orleans is visiting the Chiefs. As you can see, I'm in my truck getting ready to go into work. Yes, I do have a real job. I work at a chemical plant. Uh, so Wager doesn't just gamble, he actually works. It's crazy to believe, but I do. I actually work. Well, I guess I don't really work very much at work, but I go to a job. We'll say that. That's what I do. I go to a job. So let's talk about Sunday a little bit. Sunday had some interesting outcomes. Ravens Bengals was an insane game. We had that one right. I got hooked on an over in the Jets game. I had 40 and a half, and it got to 40. That was painful. The Steelers game last night hurt my feelings because I put in a 4-pick money line parlay in the early games, and it hit. I made like 6.8 to 1, and I rolled it all over on the Steelers on Sunday night. And I second guessed myself. I was going to roll it all over on the Dak interception prop, but instead I rolled it onto the Steelers, and the Steelers figured out a way to lose that game. I know the Cowboys outgained them and all that, but the Steelers kept doing Steeler things, and they kept turning them over. They kept getting big stops and doing Steeler things, but the Steelers offense just couldn't sustain anything. It seemed like they just every time they were just couldn't sustain a drive. And right there at the end, I didn't like that they only rushed 4. Bothered me a little bit. That didn't seem like very Steelers football. I figured that they would send an A gap in there or something. Ouch. And Fields should have had more runs. Like, I feel like there were so many times in that game where Fields could have just busted out for 30, and he didn't. You know, he kept trying to throw those deep out routes and deep sideline routes. I don't know. I feel like we saw the limitations of Fields in that game. And that'll probably lead them to Russell Wilson, I would say, because I think they saw the limitations. I think they saw exactly where Fields kind of goes. When you take away the easy stuff, he doesn't really have that touch and that ability to put it, in small windows. So his receivers did him they didn't do him no favors. They dropped some ones they should have caught. Didn't give him opportunities on some other balls. They were standing right on the sideline. Definitely, the Steelers' offense needs some. It needs some adjustment, and Russell Wilson's probably a good answer. He's going to protect the ball pretty well, and he's a better thrower than Fields for sure. So, but that was interesting. But let's get to the game tonight. The Chiefs versus New Orleans. So the Chiefs are kind of winning by default, right? Because the Chiefs aren't playing very well. I would say by the standards of the Kansas City Chiefs, they're not playing all that well. Their defense is playing pretty well, but not great. It's not perfect, right? What's up, Fuzzy? It's not like their defense is playing perfect. They're playing solid. The offense definitely isn't playing very well, and they keep losing players. So tonight, they're playing a Saints team that's lost their last 2 games, and I don't know that the Saints really know who they are exactly. They're kind of good on defense, and they're kind of good on offense, but I think kind of good and kind of good equals just a bad NFL team. I wonder if the Saints are going to be able to put it together against this Kansas City defense, which is, they're a good group overall. I think they're going to struggle tonight. And because I don't have a lot of faith in the Kansas City offense, I think the under 43 in this game is probably very realistic. It's I can definitely see 24-17. And 24-17 is 41, guys. So that's not only a Kansas City cover, but that's an under. I just don't think New Orleans scores a whole bunch more than that. I don't see New Orleans scoring in the 20s in this game. And I don't know that I see Kansas City getting well into the 20s. Maybe the low 20s. Because I do think New Orleans, because of Kansas City's personnel issues, won't have a real hard time covering them. I do think that you'll see Andy Reid scheme up a lot of things for Worthy and Kelsey, and they'll probably have a ton of receptions each, and Kansas City will figure out how to score 23 points or something, and get the win. Kind of what they've been doing, just do enough to win. And so, I'm going to go into some prop bets here. I like the Kelsey touchdown. He hasn't scored a touchdown yet this year. All the other touchdown makers keep falling off to injuries. So eventually here, he has to be the last guy standing. And it's plus 125 when I bet it. So the Kelsey touchdown is an interesting bet to me. I like it. I like Mahomes over 18.5 rushing yards. And this is kind of breaking a trend. He hasn't rushed for a lot of yards this year. Only 61 total, which is a lot less than he has been in his career. But he did have one game in the 20s. Okay. This is a football show, like for the NFL. So, however you say your name, brother, if you're interested, cool. If not, wrong show. But that guy made me lose my train of thought here. So I like Mahomes to get over 18 rushing yards. I think he'll get in the 20s this game, mostly because of the lack of weapons. I think he's going to have to run the ball a little bit. I think he's going to have to make some first downs with his legs. And so that's where I'm at on that one. I like that rushing yards total to go over. And Xavier Worthy is at 3.5 receptions. The over is plus 105. I don't know where else they're going to throw the football. So I think Xavier Worthy gets like 8 or 9 targets in this game. I think they do a lot of the Rashee Rice underneath stuff with him. So I think Mahomes dumps it off to him a lot. I actually really like that over 3.5 receptions for Worthy. I don't know where else they're going to go with the football. And so I got both Carr and Mahomes throwing a pick. So Mahomes has thrown an interception in every game this year. And Carr has thrown an interception in the last 3 games. So I think it's just kind of logical that they'll probably do it again, especially Carr facing a much tougher defense than Mahomes. Mahomes has lesser weapons going into the game. So I think there's a real recipe for an interception. Chris Jones to get over 0.25 sacks, which means if he gets a half a sack, he'll win, is at 115, plus 115. I like that because it's plus money. That means that if Chris Jones gets a hand on a guy while everyone else is tackling him, they're probably going to give him a half sack. So I just, that's a really good play for a prop play. You only need one out of the whole game. He can get half a sack. A lot of these props that I chose today are plus. Both interception props are negative props. They're, I think, minus 130 and minus 140, if I remember right. But they're interception props. These guys have shown a history this season of throwing interceptions. This actually goes back to last year for Mahomes, too. Mahomes threw a lot of interceptions last year. Total field goals over 3.5. I like this bet. Usually when I bet unders, I generally like the over 3.5 field goals to go with it, because that's kind of how you get unders usually, is a lot of field goals instead of touchdowns. So that's where I'm at in this one. I like the under for the game, under 43. I like a Kelsey touchdown. I like Mahomes over 18.5 rushing yards. I like Xavier Worthy over 3.5 receptions. Mahomes and Carr both throwing interception tonight. Chris Jones over 0.25 sacks. And the total field goals in the game to be over 3.5. Now, guys, yeah, if you just take Butker alone, that's fine. I tend to like the over 3.5 better than individualizing the kickers, because I run into these situations where one kicker will kick 3 and the other kicker will kick 1. So if you're going to take Butker, one of the things I like to do with Butker is just play his total points, because it's 7.5 in this one. So if you get your 2 field goals, obviously they're going to get some extra points too. So I actually, if you're just going to take Butker, I actually like his total points better than his field goals. And if you take Butker's total points, it's kind of a hedge to the over, because that means that they're scoring. So, but I mean, the 1.5 is fine too. I fully believe he'll kick 2 field goals in the game. Plus, you don't got to get real close with him, which is nice. The guys that don't have to get real close tend to hit their field goal props. So, again, Monday night, Kansas City, I just trust them more at home in prime time, much more so than I do the Saints. Um, I laid these points too, guys, but I'm not advising you to lay the points. I did. I laid the 5.5 with Kansas City. I also took the under. I wanted to parlay the 5.5 and the under is why I did it. So I do personally, and this isn't something I'm telling y'all. I don't think you should play this parlay, but I did. I laid 5.5 and I took the under 43. Again, I don't think it's the best bet. I just thought that the value was good enough because I think I got 2.4 on it. I think the value was good enough is why I took it. But again, I'm not super thrilled about laying those points, especially in a game that I already think is going to be really low scoring. So it's hard to cover points when you're having a low scoring game. And that's a lot of it, right? Like when you're looking at this stuff and you got to cover 5.5 is like covering a touchdown, right? You might as well be 6.5, don't get me wrong, games can win by 6, but 5.5 is one of those weird numbers that doesn't really fit anything. So in this case, laying the 5.5 is I would rather play the money line, but it's like 260 or 230 or something like that. I can't do that. So again, I laid those 5.5, but again, I think the under is the much better play if you're just looking for a side or a total. I think the best play probably in the game that I talked about was the Xavier Worthy receptions, because I don't know where else they're going to throw the ball. Plus, I think he's going to get the Rashee Rice across the field stuff, the crossing routes that Mahomes likes to dump off, the little 6-7 yard routes. And he only has to catch 4 balls, and it was plus money. So all those things together make that probably my favorite bet in this one. Again, Chiefs haven't lost. I don't expect them to lose this game. It'll probably be an ugly win again. What's going to happen in the NFL, guys, is that everyone's going to keep letting the Chiefs win, and then the Chiefs are going to get all their players back, and they're going to be 9-2 and get all their players back, and then the NFL, they're not going to be able to beat them again. That's kind of what happened last year a little bit. It's not necessarily all the players back, but the NFL, the other teams, they let the Chiefs kind of get their mojo at the end of the year, and then no one could beat them. And it's weird because I'm kind of cheering for them to get to the Super Bowl because it's history and no one has ever three-peated. But at the same time, the Broncos fan in me doesn't really want them to win. But they're a moneymaker. The Chiefs are a big moneymaker, especially if you're just betting them to win. They tend to cash tickets. So gotta love that. But anyways, guys, thank you for your time. Hopefully you guys do well on your bets. You guys bet in baseball. Tonight in the baseball game, the only bet I got for the Yankees game is I took the under. I took under 7.5. It just feels undery to me. Both teams have struggled with both pitchers, so I'm probably wrong on that one. But I'm not the best baseball handicapper in the world. I just think it's an under. I think it's under 7.5. But again, I'll probably end up getting back on there and hedging it with a couple home run props, because it tends to be when you get overs, you get some home runs, right? So I'll probably get in there and get Judge and maybe Soto even on a home run prop, just kind of as a little hedge. But there you go. You guys have a great day. This is Jacob from Wedge Me This.